IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we for sure appreciate that. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor, in the booth in the building. One more again, taking Seville to the world, bringing the world to Seville, as only IMHO Talk Show can do. So make sure you tell your folk. We got a great, great show, per usual, ready for the people. Man, we got good talk. Gonna hit those headlines. Gonna get the news that you want to talk about, that you've been talking about, that you want our humble opinions on. So, going to give it to you. Also, we're going to be joined by our friends today. Our guests for today, we're going to be joined by none other than good friend Ilya over there with the Virginia Film Festival that is coming up. That is in swing. Lineup announced, tickets available, all that good stuff. So. You know, they do the Black Excellence. We're going to talk about that and all of the top films coming up for this year's Virginia Film Festival. It's good stuff for the Ville. And also, we're going to be joined by the THRIVENT financial advisor, brother making waves in the community, helping us, helping that group economics, helping our families, helping our budget, all things money, all things finance, with none other than Edward J. Robinson, THRIVENT financial advisor. Man. So you don't want to miss it. Stay locked in, stay tuned in. Good show coming up for the people. IMHO Talk Show live. Let them know. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Share it. Post it, y'all. Let's get to it. We'll be right back.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Yours truly, Sir Charles. Want to put in a few plugs for our good people. We got some good flyers and good announcements coming through. Folks want to make sure that you're informed and in tune before we get to all this good combo that we got for y'all today. Man, a lot going on. I want to shout out all of our good people doing good things. Our good folks over at the Equity Center at UVA is having their President's Council event as we speak. So, in between listening to IMHO, or if you're out there out and about or looking for something to do, they're going to be out there, the President's Council and Equity Center. You can look up their pages, having an event today until 2 o'clock. Our good folks also having good fundraisers and all this week. The Elite Dance Team this evening having a skating event. Also fundraiser at 2512 Jefferson Park Avenue, supporting those young ladies in their national tournament journey. What else we got coming in? We got also Thursday, big fundraiser for the Helene victims and those who are suffering, brothers down on the southeastern coast as well. Thursday evening, none other than DJ Reggie Watts is going to be at the Rooftop Charlottesville at the Doyle Hotel, 6 o'clock. Going to be doing that fundraiser to raise awareness for that. There's so much going on, but also, so check it out. Make sure y'all follow all the good people in the community. But another note, definitely worth mentioning, that came into us this Friday evening, October 11th, over at the Kendallwood community. There is a sort of open house, like a public event, a community day over at Kendallwood. So, that neighborhood over there doing big things, doing good things for its community. And I'm inviting the good folks of the area out. So yeah, man. I mean, there's plenty going on, Razor. You know what I'm saying? Plenty happening in the world. So, we just want to do those plugs because the good folks know they know about our platform, man. So they just send it in saying, please announce this, please announce that. We got to do it for the people, man. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you know what? We're at that time of the year where people need to tell us what you're looking for out of us. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate the fact that y'all tune in. We appreciate the fact that you go to all our social media platforms and tell us, what you like about us. But sometimes people want what they want. So why don't y'all reach out to us and tell us what you would like us to talk about? I mean, not everybody wants to continue talking about politics. Not everybody wants to talk about everything good that's going on. Like, reach out to us, stretch us, test us. See if we can bring you what you're looking for. You like that?
Oh, get it. Yeah, man. Oh shoot. The homie Zeke Munyao too. Zeke is
my brother.
Doing an invest local. He uses his art and a lot of his resources to not only encourage the art scene around here, but also it benefits African countries and African organizations and and nonprofits that are doing good things as well. So I think over at the Common House this Wednesday evening, October 9th, he's going to be out there. So y'all check him out, look him up online as well. It's 5:30 this Wednesday, doing an Invest Local meetup. Oh man, yes indeed, buddy. We got Miss Max in the building as well right now, joining us for the intro. It's too deep for the intro, as they say.
Sounds like a lot going on in Charlottesville.
Always. So that's why I don't get the people that be like, ain't nothing to do, nothing going on. I'm like,
especially since you have a resource like IMHO to bring the announcements to you. So
like I don't know.
No good excuse.
Ignore it,
Hey, did y'all do anything good last night?
How about we take a break?
You want to bring it to him?
And we dig it up. That's a good little cliffhanger right there.
Okay,
got teaser, as they say on the radio.
Okay, I like it.
We did something. Did you do something yesterday evening, Max?
I did.
You did something? Okay. So we got something to talk about there.
What they do.
Know, right?
Y'all got to stay tuned because it's big. IMHO Talk Show. Be right back.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
Razor.
And the booth in the building.
We hear y'all.
Let me get my thingamajigs on. Let's do that. Let's get that right. Let me look like a real producer.
I see. He said, "Get my thingamajigger."
Yeah, because got to do it right for the people, especially when I looked online. Look, I'm gonna talk like I wasn't even there. When I looked online and I saw all the posts from this Jefferson City Center School Foundation
right
event that was last night. Y'all were looking pretty sharp. I said, raise the cleanup way. Raise the cleanup way.
Did it look nice?
It's surprising with some water and a little scrubbing to do.
Yeah, man. So so I gotta, like after looking like that, like we gotta be on point.
Crazy, you can't just be saying stuff like that on the radio.
Hey, look,
like some water and some scrub.
Yeah, I keep it real.
Yeah, man. But for the good folks that don't know, or maybe missed last show, Miss Max, we had our friends on, none other than James, aka Littles Dow, and we had Kimberly Sheffield.
That's right.
And they were talking about the board, the task force that Jefferson School now has, that Littles is on amongst some other great people.
That's right.
And then also Kim's position right now, how she's directing and coordinating all this community outreach over there for the foundation. And we may have new listeners every week, so we can't take this thing for granted. The Jefferson School Foundation owns the building, Jefferson School City Center, for those who may not know. And of course, there's a lot of tenants, a lot of folks there that make up that building that provide so many great services, whether it's nutritional, whether it's nonprofit services that cover the whole gamut for the community and for families. Of course, one of the more esteemed ones and more popular ones, I guess you could say, that people know about is the African American Heritage Center. But there's other big names, just that some people may not know that they are housed there. Everybody heard of the YMCA. I'm sure plenty of folks right here know about Pearl Island. Simbareras, the Fountain Fund. So there's so many more. But what they're doing is that they are what was that thing? Reimagining, redefining, and refueling.
That's right.
For the future.
For the future.
Right. And so that was a celebration last night, and sort of a kickoff with a lot of the supporters and sponsors and whatnot of the Jefferson Foundation. And so that's what that was. And as Max, as you mentioned last time, Kimberly talked about how there's going to be opportunity for the community as well to be more of a public open house type of setting. But the kickoff last night, was focused on making sure that everybody knew the folks, on the boards and the members and all that kind of stuff, knowing what is happening and what that rebranding is going to look like. And y'all can go on our page. You can see the beautiful logos done that was led up by, our good brother Sarad with a DSID, his company, and got this new website rolling out. So that's what we were doing. That's why y'all saw Razor all fly dapper Dan, like with his white on. Looked like he was going to looked like he got mob ties.
Good stuff out.
007. But wait a minute, it don't just stop there. The two of you did an excellent job in allowing the people that went to the Jefferson School there back in the day to tell their story. Y'all were engageful. It was funny. It was enlightening. It was inspiring. They even reached back to 40, 50 years ago to sing a song that they used to sing to start their day. And that was the best part of the show for me, because as I was out in the audience, the people that remembered the song started singing and getting louder. It was almost like lift every voice, the way that we do. So that was the best part of the show for me. And then my girl Tara E. Farley did her thing. She did her little thing. You know what I'm saying? She had an inside joke for anybody that was there. You know what I'm saying? She encapsulated it. I mean, she drove the ship. And then the mad scientist, I'm gonna call her Chef Sheffield.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That's her new nickname. Chef Sheffield.
With the pot.
Yeah, with the pot. She was stirring. She had the ice cubes. She was chefing that jump.
Wrist twisting like a stir fry.
Yes, indeed. I know you listening. We are so proud of you. You know what I'm saying? Take today and enjoy the moment.
Listen, please be proud of yourself.
Yes.
You did a phenomenal job. Your team did a phenomenal job. It couldn't have, last night couldn't have been any better. Couldn't have gone any better.
Hey, Max, when I looked at her team, including you and Charles, she had all winners. She had people that win. That's what they do. They don't know what loss is. They know what adversity is, but they don't know what loss is. There was no way that thing was not going to come out the way that it did. It couldn't have been no better.
Yeah, shout out to all the sponsors that was there, and shout out to our homeboy over at the Art Bar. He does so much for the Sanctuary of Soul, the art that our brother Jay Johnson is doing.
Good job,
and
Jay. He
got recognized and won an award for the night. So shouts out to you, my good brother.
He gave the Russell Simmons thing. It was like, say something. He was like, thank you. Good night.
Pretty much, yeah.
You know,
shout out to the caterer, DC Cuisine. Is that right? That's right.
Y'all look up. That's
food
right.
was delicious.
Cuisine, always.
And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed myself last night. That sharing that time with everyone and listening to the alumni of the Jefferson School speak, and not just that, but being a part of them sharing their story with the people that attended that event was just simply amazing, right? we've all been, I have, and everyone under the sound of my voice been to these different events, whether they be organizational events, whether they be fundraisers, whether they be communal events and different things like that. And each one has a vibe, right? And it's very easy to attend some of those things, and they have a not so good vibe. You know, we know how that is when family get together and cousin so and so don't like uncle so and so, and they're, you know, and I say all that to say that last night's event at the Jefferson Center was so rich in the affinity for what the center represents and what the cornerstone that it serves for the community and for the legacy of the individuals that attended that school. It was palpable. Like we were all there in celebration of that. And you know, I mean, I hesitate a little bit to put it this way, but when all of us get together, you know, it's with a love for something, you feel that.
Yeah.
And that was felt last night or yesterday evening. It was felt. And I just want to thank again Kimberly and her team for putting that together. For all those who showed up,
Chef,
because you know how we can do. You know, we'll say we'll be there, and you know, and not. But people showed up. People enjoyed themselves. They laughed. They talked. They mingled. Everyone was on one accord yesterday evening. Everyone, and it was a wonderful time.
They took that Carver Center and turned it into a red carpet event. I could not have imagined what that place was going to look and feel like. You know what I'm saying? Like it was, and then I got a chance to appreciate it again when they turned the lights on, and then everything was over, and it went back to being what we know it to be. So the work that was put in by the team, the DJs, the digital people with the lighting, the team, you know, the diversity. We had old white men, old black men, young white men, young black men, women, people looking beautiful. Like it was just
all there for the same reason.
And that was something that was echoed last night too. It was about the relationship building that's going on over there. That's why that's so important, is that the team that was put together was a wide spectrum of folks, and it was like people that have trust and that are experts in their own fields. And the beautiful thing about that to me is that we all were just trusted to do what we do. It wasn't, you know what I mean? Like the Jefferson board, you know, wasn't overbearing. They, you know, they knew
didn't micromanage you.
Right. Like, so they knew that to, in order for that to be a success, tap into the people that you have right here. Like that know what to do in their respective fields. And that, Razor and Max, feeds into my favorite part of the night, which is that sense of community that kept being echoed. How the alum and people kept saying that what they want this generation to know and to remember is that it's about accountability. It's about, like, what's that saying that they had? It was like what's taught at home should be reinforced at school. Right. And so, and that ties in for me because the fact that the Jefferson Foundation looked at their community and said, who do we have in our community that should be a part of this, that can help us make this a success as we rebrand, right? And so that feeds into what we want young people and the families that's listening to us on air right now to remember that was the main takeaway, that the history of the Jefferson School, when it was an all-black school, the community and the school was one and the same. You know what I mean? People had each other's backs. There was accountability across the board. And so that's what today families and kids and schools and educators of today should learn. And that's why our brother Eddie even mentioned that's what he wants the folks to carry on with that legacy of today, is just recognizing that like we you know, like we should be one.
Charles, that's so important. Like do y'all remember the movie, Max, we seen it not too long ago? It was like Thor, and when they destroyed their planet, Ragnarok, right?
Okay.
And then when they were looking at the planet being destroyed, I can reference that over to the way people were talking about Vinegar Hill, because I'm not from here, right? But the important thing about the movie is they said it was never about the physical place. It was always about the people. So if we in turn take the message that they gave us last night and make it about the people, we've never lost Vinegar Hill. We've never lost our community. But we have to engage with one another, and we have to have conversation
Mhm.
about what we want to keep intact.
Mhm.
Stop focusing on what you lost and focus on what you still have.
Mhm.
And that's the people.
And you know what I
Mm,
also saw last night with the panel discussion and those 4 Jefferson alumni, and I was sharing this with Ray's as well, is that I saw kids again who were
Yeah.
talking about their experiences
60,
in their
70-year-old
classrooms.
kids. Yep.
60, 70, possibly older,
like
Yep.
that.
you know,
I like that.
giggling and just watching them go back down memory lane
Mhm.
took us there. We could have
Yeah.
been sitting right there in that same classroom or walking those same
Yep.
streets to school
Mhm.
and listening to their stories and their experiences about attending that school and the community. So
Yeah.
it was a good time.
Yeah, that's important. And that, you know, what y'all both just said, like, I got to connect the dots there. It's from what I just heard both of y'all say. Like, that is of the utter importance of what we need to be able to relay to people nowadays. Of the whole, it really is about like that connection of seeing that this school really meant something to them,
Right.
you know, and that
Mhm.
and it brought back that nostalgia that Max is talking about,
Mhm.
right? Because it was so much about us, right? It was so much about community,
Mhm.
about families and whatnot. So then now, when people talk about why they should support or why they should
Right.
go to events and or sign up for membership and all that kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
like that is why, because it was said how it is a nucleus of our history that's still standing. Maybe the only, you know, thing that we have from that long ago
Yeah.
that's still standing.
Mhm.
And how many times do we mention when you step,
Oh, it's the longest
like when you
oldest
step in
building
the atmosphere, you can feel
from
you feel
Vinegar
the energy,
Hill. Yeah.
Mhm.
Good point, Charles.
You know?
Great point. Great point.
you know, and that whole people thing, man, like that is spot on. That's right on point, because like our situations,
Mhm.
right, of losing things, like you said, instead of focusing on what we lost, like that deters our relationship so much.
Mhm.
You know,
True.
like loss deters our relationships when it shouldn't.
Mhm.
And as you just said, man, it's like we focus on each other, don't lose faith in each other and who we are,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right, as a people. And that legacy is going to carry on, and our kids going to be so much better for it.
Mhm. That's right.
You know?
And again, helping to engage with the students of the Jefferson School, because the 4 that were on stage were not the only ones attending the event
Absolutely.
who
Right.
had also who were also Jefferson alumni. But in speaking to them, you got a real understanding of what torch you were carrying forward, right? And we talk about this in so many different areas of just knowing where you come from, so you know where you're going. And we got a sense of what we need to do and why we're doing it, and talking to them and sharing that event. So
Yeah. I got
Good
to say
stuff,
it.
good stuff.
I got to say it.
Uh-oh.
I can't hold it. Max done got me started.
I thought we was going to break.
No, we ain't going to break.
Mm.
Look, Miss Sheffield, you did an amazing job.
Mhm.
Come hella high water, what you went through to get to where you're going.
Mhm.
Hey, we had your back. Everybody that was there had your back. You know, you should be commended for the work that you did. And even at the end of the night, after all that woman did to make that thing come to pass, she didn't even want to take credit.
Mhm.
She didn't even want to be acknowledged. She didn't want her flowers at all, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Mhm.
At the end of the night, she just wanted everybody that was at the Jefferson to appreciate what they were going through and what they
Mhm.
were seeing. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
that the torch, not putting shadow on any work anybody else has ever done, but the torch doesn't have to be passed.
Mhm.
A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle.
Mhm.
Let that woman do what she does over there.
Mhm.
And it's going to benefit the Jefferson, the community, and everybody that has chance to come through those doors.
Mhm.
Mm.
Oh.
Well said.
Mhm.
Well said. So we handled that local news. If we take a quick break, and we're gonna get back to some of the national headlines that folks talking about.
Vote Trump. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. We gotta wake them up. Gotta wake them up. Gotta wake them up. I'm sorry.
Charles scratching his
Oh my
head.
God. I am HL Talk Show. I am HO Talk Show in the booth in the building one more again.
That's right.
Man, tell a friend if you haven't already. If you have, tell another one. Because nobody can do it, like Sir Charles Max and Razor.
Tell somebody and make America great again.
I don't know why you keep playing around with that.
He played too much. He played too much. Razor was that kid, like that like took jokes too far. When you're joking with each
Always
other.
too far.
Always got to go too far. See, pushing that boundary. So I got a question for you, Razor.
Yes, sir.
You been pulled over yet?
Have I?
You been pulled over?
I
No, hold
stay
on.
on the side.
You been pulled over yet? And the cops say our flock camera is questioning this vehicle?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not in Virginia. Let me say that. Not in Virginia. Yeah.
All right. I mean, like since you want to talk about some of the conservative agendas, you want to play around voting for it, then let's talk about it, then, right?
Well, no, what I'm saying. Look, I can feel Max shaking her head. Look, I've been married for that long. I ain't got to look at him, right?
You can feel the wind.
So, look, all I'm pretty much trying to do, honestly, on a moment of truth, is to make sure I wake y'all up. You know what I'm saying? Because when you hear something that you don't particularly like, you become in tune with whatever's getting said, right? So the main thing I want y'all to take from that is vote in order of your interest. Look at everything that's going on. Look at the fact of, if I normally come in and have debates and destroy people, and now I'm afraid to have debates because I can't have the shenanigans that I used to, that means something. You know what I'm saying? If the people that I'm bringing along with me are agreeing with the other side and kind of coming to a meeting of sorts of respect of one another, that means something. You know what I'm saying? So
let me ask y'all this though.
Yeah.
Since we had the chief of police on talking about the cameras and he tried to dispel the myths about it, since that time, have either of you gotten new information to put that should put people a little more at ease, or do you feel like it's just as questionable?
I'm going to go ahead and take this. I know what the program is, you know what I'm saying? And it comes down to, and Chief, if you're listening to this, you're my boy, but I'm going to keep it clean here. It comes down to the people that you have working for your organization.
Right.
And unfortunately, we have too many situations where it's questionable about the people that's supposed to protect and serve us.
Right.
Now, regardless of what that individual looks like, if it happens and you say, look, this is a problem and we fix it and we move forward, that's one thing. But if we keep having things in place that are questionable, and then we put things like the PCOB in it to like kind of navigate and make sure everything is going correctly, and you put reins on them to where they can only do so much, so much information can go through, you have to wonder, is the system designed to keep from being held accountable?
Yeah. And that's
just,
what, go ahead,
real
Max.
quick, Charles, just to clarify for our listeners, because many of you, I'm sure, are asking, what is the FLOC program? FLOC is a public safety operating system that helps law enforcement and communities work together to reduce crimes. Okay. This is according to just a typical Google search. And it actually is a license plate recognition camera program where if there's a crime committed that happens to, and a vehicle was involved that happens to pass through any of the locations where a FLOC camera is it identifies the license plate, not the driver, according to the information that I'm aware of, not the driver, just the license plate itself.
Yeah, it's called profiling.
Thanks for clarifying that too, Max, for the listeners that weren't aware. That's for sure. But isn't it as with all things, like when we think about laws and rules and stuff, with all the bills that get passed and within government, on the surface it can always look one way, but it's always about the people that's implementing it, right? Right. And even like when we talk about policing in general, when we talk about police profiling and stuff in general, it's on one hand we say we want to clean up streets, and then on the other hand we get mad that people that are committing crimes get locked up, right? You follow what I'm saying? Like and like, so there is always that middle ground of saying we can't be scared, because I hear a lot of activists like ride this wave a lot too, where it's like we can't enact that law because they'll use it wrongly against Black people.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
That's true.
So like we got to somehow do the activism that actually lets us have the right laws in place, but while we also keep the people in office, they're going to implement the laws correctly. We can't blame the thing. It's almost like gun control. You know how they always say guns don't kill people, people kill people. It's the same kind of thing. Same logic.
It's this is the way I look at it, right? Things don't change. They just find a different way to tell it to you so that you can accept it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I say that because there's power in control, and certain people have figured that out. When it comes to what you were talking about, Charles, I don't see how you can. We're not in positions to make the actual decisions, because too often I feel they choose the figurehead that they want to give you the poison. And if I can make it, you think that this one looks like you and acts like you and whatnot, then you're less likely to put your activists out here or listen to the activists that are telling you the truth. So as long as I can slide you an envelope in a closed door, I can put your kid through to schools that they could naturally get into, we're always going to have this problem. Now, the bigger problem is, as much as we just enjoyed everything that we went through last night, our community is divided, and we are divided in thought. We're divided in actions. We're divided in finances. We're just a divided community as a whole. And I'm talking about nationally. Like, somebody can do something and it can be too black, too ghetto, too whatever, you know what I'm saying? But that same thing can be done, put some a music note behind it, and we all celebrating it. You know what I'm saying? We can see a young lady walking down the street and she's half dressed, and we'd be like, she ain't got no home training. She shouldn't have came to church like that. And then that lady can be on the video and you talking about, man, put on Sports Illustrated. She the finest thing going. Man, she got, you know what I'm saying? So really,
what we talking about, Charles?
Our community. What y'all what I'm trying to say, we divide.
Hey, look, so my issue with that though is that, like, so many times we're talking out both sides of our mouth though, because when one of us gets successful, too many times the first thing that we jump to is that, oh, they must have sold out. Oh, like they're the figurehead. And like, we don't even give people a chance. That's why for sure. Yeah. But what I'm saying, but the thing is though, is like I always tell people, it got to be a domino effect. You got to have 2 or 3, kind of like how the Bible says 2 or 3, touching and agreeing, in my name, that kind of thing. It's the same thing with business. Only way we're gonna move ahead is if you get first a small group setting the example, and then that thing replicates. But as long as
he said touch and agree, he's talking about puppet. He ain't talking about puppet.
So look, back to the discussion about the flock program, though. I have a bit more information and raise this to your point.
Yeah.
The areas where the cameras are installed are not just in our predominantly Black neighborhoods, and those listening can visit charlottesville.gov to get this list. But they're at Emmett and Barracks Road, 250 in Rugby, Long Street and Freebridge, Monticello Avenue and Druid, Roosevelt, Brown, and Cherry. And I mean, I'm sure some people listening that live in these neighborhoods, West Main and 10th, University Ave and 14th, Cherry Ave and Ridge Street, Ridge and McIntyre and Preston, and Preston Avenue and Grady.
Do people understand, Max, that profiling is both ways though? Profiling isn't just, we associate it with being bad for Black people, right? But profiling also lets you know who's supposed to be here. It's like a membership. So depending on who's in charge of the camera, you look at it and you say, yep, they're supposed to be here. You know what I'm saying? And they do it the same way. Let's say, for instance, back in the day, you have a predominantly Black area and you see a young white guy come through there. You'd be like, oh, he ain't supposed to be here. He must be purchasing drugs, or he the police or whatever. So profiling is almost like in the Bible when people say you reap what you sow. Well, most people that I knew where I was from didn't read the passage before that told you if you reap good, you sow good. You reap bad, you sow bad. They just they weaponized it to say that, okay, you reap what you sow meant something bad. I know that's the house I grew up in. My mom would say it to me all the time until I actually picked up a Bible and read it and said, Mom, why didn't you tell me this part? She said, nobody told me.
Okay. Hey, that's what it's about.
But
Max, that list, you still got that list up?
I do.
Because did my ears deceive me? Or all those intersections you name has a pretty dense Black population. Am I correct in that?
For the most part.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, let's be real.
And I'm not too familiar. I'm not from Charlottesville, so I'm not too familiar with the lay of the land. But I've also been told it's also the parameter. It pretty much is the parameter of the city.
You mean the prison? I mean, think about it, right? Because that's just another way of think about hunters that have field cameras, right? You put the cameras out there to see what comes through. And then when you decide to harvest that animal, you know its pattern. You learn it. You know, we're seeing it with AI. You know what I'm saying? It all incorporates into one another. So if I see your car, know you don't have a license, and murders happen, drugs start happening, open air market, whatever, I can put pressure on you and say, okay, do you want to lose that new job that you just got down at the distribution center? You know what I'm saying? Because I know you ain't got no license.
And it's even deeper than that.
X, Y, Z for me. So it's deeper than just monitoring somebody, shots fired. Like last night, 15 shots fired somewhere, right? The thing came across my phone. It's bigger than that, right? It's a means of control.
Yeah, because it's even the perpetuated generational incarceration of our people, because it's even deeper than what you just said. It's you could be kin to somebody.
Absolutely.
And so you're driving their car, or you like visiting their home, and you going in and out of the same street, right? And so now you're on the radar.
Yeah, that's how I did my time. That's exactly how I did mine.
You know what I mean? And so that's the problem, is that we're perpetuating like this generational issue. If in fact it gets implemented in that way, which I hope it doesn't. But based on the placement,
it's already implemented. It's already implemented. Let's just be real. These things that by the time they bring them to us, they've already been tested to see if it works. Because nobody is going to bring a failed system and have it attached to their name. So it has already solved some cases that we didn't know nothing about, verified some information that people made some complaints about. You know what I'm saying? And then once they put the cameras up, they're also going to put, Lord, please, police, do not mess with me from this. This is my old life. These cameras are going to have speakers on them. So when shots are fired, it's going to range out what that 9mm is and how far it goes. That's another reason why the canopies being cut down are very important, because they don't dampen the sound. Like these are, this may be a life I had or didn't have at one particular time. You know what I'm saying?
Somebody told you. Somebody told you.
Please don't go. I'm in church now.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
But Max, thank God for statutes of limitations.
Okay, let me just take this one. I would be remiss if I didn't.
That's the truth.
If I didn't read one paragraph further, right, Razor, and then we'll get your thoughts on this.
We're up against hours.
So what
I'm gone.
What I have here is that, listen, so protecting the privacy, I'm reading from the city website again regarding the FLOP program. Protecting the privacy of our community is crucial. We want to stress that all data collected by the system will remain strictly confidential. Data captured by the FLOC system will not be constantly monitored. The still frame images captured are strictly for official law enforcement purposes only. In most cases, captured data will go unreviewed and will be automatically deleted in 7 days. Still frame images captured will be restricted to law enforcement purposes. Law enforcement purposes only, and will not be used for the following: facial recognition, personal identification, traffic enforcement. They gave you their word, Razor.
No, look, all right. I know how to frame things, right? My wife tell me all the time, don't you be framing no conversation to say whatever, right? So I am very good at framing. If I give you what I want you to focus on, you're less likely to ask the questions that are really going to harm you. So if the camera and the microphones, which they should pick up, I'm not saying that they shouldn't pick up shots fired and things of that nature, right? Then it alerts the cameras to check anything coming through this area within a certain time frame. It's almost like the Jersey Turnpike. We used to go up the Jersey Turnpike on motorcycles, 150, 160 miles an hour, get right to the end and pull off on side of the road and wait till the time frame went, because we realized that it's a mathematical equation from when you got on to when you got off, and that's how they judge your speed.
Makes sense.
Right? So we learned to beat the system by pulling off the side of the road and just giving it time and then pulling through. Right? So
I got one
shots
question
go off, they're going to look for the cars that are in that vicinity.
So, Razor, are you saying that this sound pickup thingy, whatever it is that you're describing, is that potentially like an add-on to this program that we've already implemented?
How many cameras do you know that don't have microphones connected to them?
I ain't never had to worry about
No,
that.
no. Like
I don't
like
look,
the cameras that we
look,
use
Charles.
here.
I don't know a single one
On your computer, on your computers, on these, the ones that we use here that y'all use. These have microphones on them, so it will be used for a good purpose. But guess what? If it can pick up a gunshot, it can pick up a conversation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
You understand what I'm saying?
Okay,
so you don't actually have to commit the crime at that time.
Than I thought you were.
Right. Yeah. You just have to look at. I mean, this is
like, but I'm with you.
This is things that I saw back in the 80s and early 90s, right?
Yeah. So last question.
Just making it here.
So last question just before we go to break.
I'm not sure you're supposed to be giving this kind of game away, but go ahead.
Hey, look, they're gonna come get me.
But go ahead.
Anyway.
Go ahead. So without me saying which side could be right or wrong, or like whose intentions are good. Do you think, because based on this conversation, my mind leads to, do we think and believe that you can take something, like you said, that may have been used for bad and use it for good?
Yeah, it's a necessary evil.
But what I'm saying is locally, because that doesn't answer the question.
It does.
It's a necessary evil. It has to happen because we unfortunately have adopted the do not snitch clause to a fault. We watch people get.
Kids don't even know what snitching comes from.
They don't know what it means, right? Yeah. So we watch women get beat. We watch people get killed. We watch women get raped. We watch children come up missing. So if I can go after, and I commend the officers for doing this, if I can make you focus on the crime, right, of drug selling, shots fired, stolen cars, all these things, right, and you say, yes, solve those problems, the default mechanism is I will be able to utilize it in these other areas right here. Because if things raise above a certain octave, the cameras go into effect. So the shriek of a person, because they're being attacked, will make the cameras start recording. Now, if it ain't no problem, it ain't no problem. But that whole thing about, Max, you talking about, by like, it'll only be looked upon about certain people. Well, once they give the oath, they're certain people. They're considered certain people. And then that's why so many of them abuse their power. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this ain't cops. I'm not against y'all, because y'all are a necessary evil. Is
that fair?
Is it fair? Yeah, because the police department grew after slavery was abolished. And
I mean, it's definitely fair.
And their
like, I'm just one that
is their purpose.
Right. It's definitely fair. I'm just one that thinks that we will continue this generational trauma if we don't get past the point of thinking that something that was bad, or people who use something for bad, can't be used to our good.
It is for good. You hit me in my mouth, I'm calling the police. I'm gonna tell on you. You're going to jail. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna sleep on a 3-inch mattress. Like, it's a necessary evil. Now, do I understand that the same officer that would shake my hand and give me a hug and help me change a flat tire out at Lowe's, or a grandmother taking her grandson to school, which has happened, and my 2 younger boys watch me and an officer lay on the ground and change a grandmother's tire. Soon as I pulled out from there, if I look a certain way to another officer that looks just like the one that just helped me, decides to follow me and see if I got warrants, and wait to see if I, follow me so close that he pretty much makes me cross or gets too close to the line because I'm nervous, make me turn down. I'm turning down my radio. I'm trying to do my hands 3 and 9 and all this old crazy stuff. But he looks the same. That's the problem. That's the only problem I have here where we live at. It's the birthplace of America. The same person that is racist against you looks like the same person that will hug you, kiss you, and fight for you.
So what's the solution here? Like,
we have to survive it. We have to survive it. There is no thriving in it, because
what can be changed? We talking about police community relationships. We talking about systems. We talking about.
There is a.
Y'all didn't like my answer. Y'all didn't like my answer because I gave y'all an answer a minute ago. We got to start believing in people again. It's kind of like what you said about when we lose something, we then make us lose relationships. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I feel like, again, that you can find the right leadership. You can find the right government officials. You can find the right police officers and whatnot. It's all about the hearts of people, because otherwise we constantly going to be saying, oh, remember when they did that to us 10 years ago?
Yeah.
If we want to stay stuck there, we can.
But it's a reality. You look at people's social media. I look at different people that, because.
So, Reza, you're saying you got to show me different in order for me to think differently.
They can't show you different, because the people.
But who is they?
The people in power, whoever's in power.
But we got to put the people in power. That's what I'm saying.
We can't put.
We can't base it on the people in power from 50 years ago.
We can't put the people in power.
Locally, we can't. I agree with you if we're talking about federal level. Locally, we absolutely can.
It's no different because we say
locally we have more control
them early before they become big, right? So that means that the federal people were once local people, right? So how do they get there? They get there because they have more money to put more signs in the yard, and people think, well, they must be a better candidate because they're more relevant in my face, right? So do I think that there can be a change? I'm saying no.
Man, you making me depressed, bro.
I know it's not. Like what it should be doing is putting you into action so you implement plan A, plan B, plan C.
I feel you.
And that plan A incorporates everybody in your circle. That plan B incorporates everybody in your circle. That plan C. Now, for lack of a bad way of putting it, and I know y'all gonna have a problem with me saying this, when it came to like terrorist people, when we went through 9/11, and I started reading books and understood what those cells were like, they have people that when this cell gets knocked off, the next one comes into play. It's almost like the skin of your body. When this skin gets knocked off, it creates a scab and the next one comes up and it's their time to be in charge. If we act all our systems out, plan A, plan B, plan C, and everybody knows plan A, plan B, plan C, you can protect it. And when you say, okay, well, they got Jimmy's gone for whatever reason. Sally, it's your time to go up. Everybody gets behind Sally. The negative things work that way. That's why they are able to go generation to generation to generation. Evil will always be here because it knows when it's my time to come up. It doesn't pull each other down like us progressive woke people do. You know what I'm saying?
Without evil, there'd be no such thing as good. You got to have a yin and a yang.
Yeah, you have everything, and regardless, you'll have situations to where people might come together to take down a monument, and then 5 minutes later, they're against each other. You know what I'm saying? And as us as black people, we scared to talk about it, or we wait to see the fallout to see who disrespects who the most.
Yeah, all right, we got to roll. We way over.
Oh, okay.
I keep looking at Max like, get your husband.
Yeah, ain't no
we got people waiting.
10 minutes, 15 minutes past the break.
Yeah.
Get your husband.
I'm just saying, like, we it's not a matter of doing better. It's a matter of understanding where we really are in mental thought. Because I'd much rather know that you're a jacked up person and this is how you think. So I know how to incorporate. Look, don't bring him down because he's gonna act crazy. Bring it, we need crazy, so bring them down. You got to be honest with where each person is instead of talking about one another in back rooms and then trying to expose them behind a keyboard. I'm not with that. So regardless of who do it.
All right, let's go to break. We'll be right back after this.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show.
I was.
Miss Max surprises me. Now I'm gonna say, Razor, get your wife. Every now and then it comes out. Every now and then she takes off the cool and let you know, don't play with me. Man, IMHO Talk Show. You can be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we certainly appreciate it. So tell a friend, because we have some of our great.
Hey, Charles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's up?
Guess whose ringtone is Knuck If You Buck?
Oh, Lord.
No.
She said, I can't confirm nor deny.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, man. But no, we are joined by a good partner of ours. For the since he's been here, the relationship with the Virginia Film Festival precedes his employment there. But since he's been here, he's been a friend of ours on the radio airwaves. So y'all know what time it is. About time this year, the artistic director of the Virginia Film Festival team, none other than Ilya Tovbis. Ilya, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Love being here. It's an exciting time of year.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. And the people definitely concur. This is a time of year that most of Seville looks forward to. Once again, kudos on you for once again making sure that diversity and that community and that voices get put on display at the Virginia Film Festival. But y'all are in your 37th annual this year, talking October 30th through November 3rd. So let's kind of start right there. Within your prepping and planning for the 37th year, what was the mindset that you wanted to take for year 37?
A lot of it is we've been around, as you say, our 37th year, and I think there's always elements to improve. There's always elements to change, but we did not want to reinvent the wheel. We feel, as you say, that it's a program that has really prided itself on being diverse, on being accessible, and there's a lot of different ways to jump into those terms. The best is through the programs themselves that we'll get to, but the key for us is to make sure we're truly showing the best in contemporary cinema. Just about everything we show, with one or two key exceptions, which we'll probably get into, are brand new films. They're not out in theaters, they're not streaming, but they're films from all over the world. They're documentaries, they're narratives, they're fiction. It's meant to be as broad brush take on the best in cinema today.
Nice, good stuff. So once again, joined by Ilya Tovbis, talking about the 37th annual Virginia Film Festival, October 30th through November 3rd. So, and just so people know, before we get into the nitty gritty of what to expect this year, like where are we right now within the schedule as far as like folks being able to see what's in the lineup, let folks know when tickets will be available, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. We just announced our full program, so you can see everything there is that's on offer. That's the best place to do that is our website, virginiafilmfestival.org. At this point, you can jump on, see all of the films. It's over 120 offerings, so a lot to dive into. It's a dense 5 days of festival. You can see trailers. You can do just about everything with the key exception of getting tickets. We are in our donor pre-sale period, so if you are a donor to the film festival, then you have advance access. But for the general public, October 11th is the date to circle. On that day, everyone gets access to tickets, and we hope that you take the next week or so, plan out your schedule. There's some people that see 10, 15, maybe even 20 events. There's some people that are able to just make it to one or two. Either way, we want to welcome you with open arms, so you can spend the next week or so checking out the lineup at virginiafilmfestival.org.
This is a major program. People all across the city of Charlottesville and the world, for that matter, descend on Charlottesville for this film festival. And I'm just curious. I don't know if there's some like award ceremony where there's a vote of best film festivals in the United States. But how would you kind of self-appoint the Charlottesville Film Festival in comparison to those that occur like kind of across the United States?
Absolutely. I think that there are some very well-known festivals that are sort of the A-class festivals in the U.S. and North America, being Toronto, Sundance, South by Southwest. I think these tend to have national and international profile. But really the next set of film festivals we belong to, which is very credible regional festivals. So as you mentioned, we bring in guests from literally all over the world. We have guests coming in from Europe. We have guests coming in from Latin America, all throughout the U.S., as well as our own backyard. But I think what distinguishes us is a regional film festival that matters, that has these sorts of high caliber, very often Academy guests, Academy awarded, and a membership of the Academy coming in. And I think we're a quite credible enterprise, not just for a local community, but all throughout the country.
Yep, thank you for that. Thank you for that, man. We're talking 37th Annual Virginia Film Festival with the artistic director, Ilya Tovbis. So he, we'll remind y'all of the dates again by the end of the interview, and we also put it in the comment section of this stream as well. But man, let's dig into it though. Let's so the people know exactly what we're talking about, with some things to come to expect. Let's start with sort of the highlights, sort of the marquee moments during this week. What's some of the things that you all want to highlight the most coming up?
Sure. So I'll start with a few of our keynote nights, being opening, centerpiece, and closing. We opened the festival with a really exciting film. It's called Honora. It's from Sean Baker. For those that are fans of American independent cinema, his name will ring out. You'll remember Tangerine or Red Rocket, Florida Project, and others. He's really considered one of the top and most important American auteurs, American independent filmmakers. And you do not have to take just my word for it. The most important film festival in the world since its founding, also the oldest film festival, is the Cannes Film Festival in France. And it has been since 2011 that an American filmmaker has walked home with the Palme d'Or, the most important prize at the most important festival. And Sean Baker just did it this year with this film, Honora. So we are really excited to screen that as our opening night film on the 30th of October. It's going to be at the Paramount, and we are going to have special guests from the cast. We're not quite ready to announce who they are yet because we're dotting some I's, crossing some T's on that, but it's going to be a really exciting evening. And as just a short idea of what it's about, this film centers on the titular character, Honora. She mostly goes by Ani. She's an exotic dancer in Brooklyn who sort of sees her ticket to a golden life, to an improvement in life, through this marriage with a young man. They get married almost overnight. They meet quickly. They get married, and a better life is to come. But it turns out that his dad is a Russian oligarch. And when his dad hears about this union, he is none too happy. He books it over to the country, and he attempts to break it up. And while there might be some serious themes, there are some serious themes, as you could hear in that description, the mode of the storytelling, it's really a 21st century update on the screwball romantic comedy. On a screwball comedy, it's very funny. It'll have you floating on air, incredibly textured, layered characters who you will want to spend even more time with. I'm confident people are going to be floating on air as they walk out of the theater.
No way. Well, that says a lot. That says a lot.
Indeed. Yes, indeed.
So from there, I can hop to a couple of nights forward. In the afternoon, our centerpiece screening is going to be another pretty wild tale. This one is Emilia Perez, also saw sort of major highlights coming out of the Cannes Film Festival, and now New York Film Festival, Toronto, and some of the other biggest stops in the film festival world. This is a pretty wild story. It centers on Carlos Sofia Gascon, who plays a narco trafficker in Mexico, who begins at first shots and eventually surgery for gender affirmation, and wants to start a new life, wants to leave the old life behind, transform into Emilia Perez. But before, when she was in Mexico, she was married to a character played by Selena Gomez, has lovely kids, has a great relationship. And so when in the dead of night absconds, has the surgery, just can't give up that old life, and returns in a sort of secretive guise back to Mexico at great danger to everyone around. This features Zoe Saldana, Selena Gomez, and Carlos Sofia Gascon, the central actress, became the first openly trans actor to ever win an award at the Cannes Film Festival. Really excited about this screening. I should also mention, on top of all of these different elements, it's part soap opera, and it's in many parts a musical as well. So it's a pretty wild story to wrap your mind around. You have to see it on the big screen in order to really understand what this is about. And that's going to be on Saturday, November the 2nd at the Paramount at 3:30. And just go ahead.
Let me ask you a question about that, because I'm curious. So you mentioned Selena and Rosario, right? Zoe. I'm sorry,
Zoe Saldana. Yes,
I got Rosario Dawson on the brain for some reason, but she's in one of these films, right? Rosario Dawson. I'm pretty sure I saw her on the screen on one of these films coming up when I was at the reception. But you talking about Selena and Zoe. So I'm curious, like when it comes to your to your perception of selecting films and whatnot, does it weigh any when you have sort of like recognizable names like that versus one that may be totally independent with like new with new actors and actresses? Does that come into play at all, or is it all about the actual product?
I mean, first and foremost, it has to be films that we're passionate about. It's a dense program, but it's chosen from a much larger selection. So we get nearly 2,000 films that we solicit and they're also submitted to us. So we have sort of our choice of a lot of different films. Many of them are great. Many films we don't take are amazing, and we wish we had more room. So first and foremost, it has to be about the product. It has to be that folks in our office, myself, Jody, our guest programming team, and others genuinely feel passionate. This is a story we're telling. We're telling a big screen that we want our audience to share in. Of course, we make note of recognizable names, and really what we're seeking there is a balance. I mean, as you dive deep into the program, you will find plenty of first-time filmmakers, independent filmmakers, ones that might not have the same cachet or recognizability. It's very important for us to give amplification and give voice to their work. But we also want it to be, as I said, kind of a broad brush film festival that's broadly inviting. And people do want to see stars, and there's nothing wrong with that. We want to see people recognized. We want to see them shine a new light. For my money, I actually think this is the best Zoe Saldana's ever done, and Amelia Perez, and she's had some great credits to her name. But I think this might be her highlight. So we want to track these stars as they continue to achieve new heights as well.
Okay. Any other panel discussions scheduled?
Many panels. We actually haven't even gotten into the formal panel discussions, but we can jump ahead. So the festival.
We don't need to, Charles. Did you want to cover any other films before we move on to?
Well, for sure. If any other films you wanted to, highlight to make mention of now, feel free.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll mention a couple. So one of the ways in which we have to jump into what's kind of a dense program that we hang our hat on are themes or strands, as we tend to call them. And these are ones that we return to year after year. Not every film in the festival fits into these. Some films in the festival fit into multiple because, of course, there's an intersectionality of human identity. But one of the themes that I think we are most proud of that outside of when I go and have meetings, whether it's in Hollywood or even international film festivals, our festival, the Virginia Film Festival, is recognized for Black Excellence Series. This is a series that focuses on the African-American and even African experience. And what makes up the identity of Blackness was, of course, a complicated question. So a couple of highlights there, and there's many more in this series. There's 9 altogether this year, would be The Piano Lesson. This is the newest adaptation of the work of August Wilson. And as those that have followed the Washington family, as in Denzel Washington, have the rights to adapt his whole oeuvre onto screen. This is their third go at it. You might have seen Ma Rainey's Bottom, or before that, Fences. And they're back with A Piano Lesson, and this is truly a family affair. So Denzel Washington produces this film, but he is not in it, and he does not direct it. He gives those honors to 2 of his sons. So Malcolm Washington, this is his directorial debut. And then John David Washington, who you might recognize from BlacKkKlansman, as well as many other films. He is one of the leads alongside Samuel L. Jackson, alongside Ray Fisher, Daniel Deadwyler. It's really an all-Gus cast worth seeing for just that. But really, the film is this incredible portrayal. It centers, just like the play does, on this heirloom piano that's been passed on through a couple of generations of the family from their enslaved ancestors. And there's a great argument at the center of the film what to do with this piano. Some people want to hold on to it as a traumatic and painful but really important form of memorial. Other people actually want to use it as a vehicle for a better life. They want to sell it in order to be able to afford to buy a piece of land to make their way forward. And especially this is in the 30s in Pittsburgh, where it is difficult to make money if you're anyone. It's specifically difficult when a couple of generations ago your family was enslaved. And so that's the center of the film, but it is incredibly visually told. I think of the 3 adaptations, this is the closest to true large-scale epic cinema. I actually really liked the previous 2, but they worked a little bit more as a play that was filmed rather than a true film adaptation of a play. And this has spectral, ghost-like elements. This has really soaring cinematography. I think the best of the works thus far. That's going to be playing on Friday night at the Paramount. And some exciting guests that we're going to be announcing about that one as well very soon. But A Piano Lesson, just a couple of others in that series to mention quickly. The Fire Inside is the newest film from Barry Jenkins. Apologies, Barry Levinson, another famous filmmaker, but not the one. Barry Jenkins, who you recognize from Moonlight. He produced and wrote this, and it is the directorial debut of Rachel Morrison, who is considered widely the most important female cinematographer in the States. You'll recognize her from Fruitvale Station and from Black Panther and others. And she makes her directorial debut, and it's the story of Clarissa T-Rex Shields, who was and still is. She was as a young woman was a scrappy boxer from Flint, Michigan. No one, with the exception of a couple of members of her family, her coach, really believed in her future, and she went on to become the most decorated Olympic boxer in U.S. history, and that's male or female, against tremendous odds and showing great perseverance. So the Fire Inside is her story. And just one last one to mention in the series, and again, there are others, is a brand new film by Luther Vandross called Luther Vandross Never Too Much. And this is coming to us from Don Porter, a great documentarian who did Gideon's Army before. Don is going to be with us to accept our Chronicler Award for Best Documentary Filmmaker. So that's certainly one not to miss. I think Luther Vandross's fans will be dancing in the aisles for that one.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
You just told us about the Black excellence, right? Is it difficult choosing films and not being Black? If you were to see a film like Friday or slapstick comedy, it's a feel-good film. People gonna laugh. It might not show the Black community in the best positive light, but it's something that you know that is going to get a large viewing. Would that be a difficult thing to add to something as important as the film festival?
So I think it's a good question, and it's sort of an existential consideration that goes to the Black excellence question, but also well beyond it, because we show films from Southeast Asia, we show films from the Middle East. There's a few ways to answer it that are true. The first is almost no decision is singularly made by a single person. So I am not Black, and I do make decisions that weigh in on films in the Black excellence series, Middle East, and so forth. But we also have programmers and key artistic advisors that are from the community at large, and I think are more representative than any single person can be. If we're talking to a Black woman, she may or may not be able to talk to a Vietnamese woman's experience, or myself. I'm also originally not from the U.S., but I choose a lot of U.S. films. So I think it is never possible to totally encapsulate all identities in one person. And I think the best way to do that is to stay flexible, to talk to artistic advisors, talk to our guest programmers, and to try to come to a program that's as broad tent as possible, and that's as evocative of different themes. And we're likely going to miss something, and we're going to improve year to year.
Yeah. So while Razor's up there too, you mind talking a little bit about the Voices of the Formerly Incarcerated series?
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually a new one this year.
I ain't even lying, Razor.
What is he trying to say?
Voices of the Formerly Incarcerated.
Yeah.
I'm glad you pointed out. It's actually one of the things.
Talk to me about this here.
I will happily do so. Yeah, this is one of the programs that we're actually most excited about this year. This is a brand new initiative for us this year. It's not something that we've done in the past. So what this is a series. It's a block of 3 events. One of the events actually has multiple films, all happening on Saturday, November the 2nd, all of which give amplification, give stage time, give presence to filmmakers who were formerly incarcerated. Every one of these films is produced, is shot by, and features people that survived incarceration. So there's 3 different sets of stories. We start the day with Juvenile 5, which, as the title you might be able to glean, it's actually 5 stories of juveniles that had incidents with violence, with gun violence, and all went through the juvenile incarceration system, all got out. A couple of them are going to be with us, as will some of the producers of the story, to share their stories in real life. A little bit later in the day, we're partnering with a newish festival out of Richmond called THRIVENT that actually specifically and exclusively does this work on incarceration survivors. And we'll have 4 short films, again, all from filmmakers that have been through the experience, telling their own tales. All of them will be with us for that event. And we close that set of programming with a film called Unlikely Allies, about a pretty famous case of Weldon Angelos, who ended up having really celebrity support, but it took quite a while to get there. Eventually, he had Snoop Dogg in his corner, he had Cory Booker in his corner, and he also had people on the right. He had the Koch Family Foundation, which is hard to find anyone more right than them, all of whom championed his cause. And not just his cause, he essentially committed a very minor crime, but because of draconian laws in this country, ended up doing an incredibly long sentence. Nobody pretty much thought it was fair, but it took a lot to change the laws around how long somebody might be incarcerated for.
And when it comes to grouping the films too, when you look at your short programs, what's sort of the mindset, but like behind getting the shorts, together, like the way those were themed, maybe, or are there any themes around the short programs that you think would be good to highlight right now?
Sure. The shorts are one of the most exciting and most difficult to program. I'm actually glad to say that while I have a hand in all of it, this is one of the areas. We have a great young woman, Jan Makoni, I've had the chance to work with for a few years, who curates that series and leads the grouping of that. But the reason I say it's the most difficult, it's just the volume. We're talking about literally probably over 1,000 films in the shorts realm that are considered every year.
And what constitutes a short?
So a short film, I'm glad you asked. It's really just a time designation. It's the duration of the film. So anything for us, and this is different film festivals, but for the Virginia Film Festival, we define it as under 30 minutes.
Okay.
Many of them are well under 30 minutes. They can be 5 minutes. They can be 2 minutes, 15, 20. But really what that means is we're grouping a few together in order to come to a full-length series. And it's a great challenge, a great opportunity, because you have so many amazing films. Again, the vast majority of them don't get in, not just on quality, but to your earlier point about they have to be grouped in a thematically relevant way. You're kind of coming in watching films on a particular topic, and I think Yad does a great job. One in particular that I want to point out there, because I think it has relevancy to the program as a whole, is for the past couple of years, we've been doing something called Our Wealth in Common, obviously a play on words on the Commonwealth. And that is looking specifically at filmmakers that are either from Virginia or use the state of Virginia and the themes relevant to the state of Virginia as central to their films. And that's playing on Sunday night. And we have a lot of great guests and a lot of good films for that one as well.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the Virginia filmmaking one that you just mentioned. That's separate?
Yeah. So this is a good example of there being intersectionality. One of the things as the Virginia Film Festival that we of course pride ourselves in is amplifying the work of filmmakers from Virginia. So we do it in full length work and in short work. When it's both of those, it's at the intersection of one theme that we have called Virginia filmmaking, and the other is shorts. But there are films that have multiple of those themes, and some of those films are actually Black excellence films. Some of them are Latinidades films, which is another series that we have in the Latinx identity. Some of them might be in the Korean or in the Middle East and South Asian, or environmental, or these other themes that we have coursing throughout the festival.
Yeah. So I know when y'all were here, I think maybe last year you had Tanisha on for her Unbroken documentary. Is there anything that's significant to Charlottesville this year?
Sure. There's a number of films that are very significant to Charlottesville this year. So I'll talk about one group of Charlottesville-based filmmakers. This is Ellen and Paul Wagner, who are going to be honored this year with our Gerald L. Belial's Founders Award. He was the former governor of Virginia, who was the founder of this film festival 37 years ago. And they are Charlottesville filmmakers. Paul is an Academy Award-winning filmmaker. And their constant theme over 40 works these days is the telling and retelling of American history and great American icons. They trained their camera this time on the mother of American modernism, Georgia O'Keeffe. And this is the first time her story, and it's a pretty wild story for those that don't know it. If you just know kind of her flowery art or, some of the art that she did in New Mexico, that's a good way in. But she actually has a pretty wild story, some of which is rooted locally as well. Between 1912 and 1916, she was quite seriously, if you read her diaries, thinking about giving up on art. She just thought, look, there's no future in this. No one's really responding to what I'm doing. And she took classes here every summer, rekindled her joy and her love for the art form, and then went and took the New York scene by storm in the 1920s forward. And this is before she, of course, famously moved to the desert of New Mexico, became a second wave feminist icon. She also had a really interesting, she always talked about her art was not sexual in nature. A lot of people have tried to say that the art was meant to be evocative of sexual tones, and she always pushed back on that. And at the same time, she posed nude for some very controversial photos. And she said, look, that might be sexual, but my work is not. So she's a very complicated figure, very interesting figure. And that's a, Virginia-based story, both parts that happen in Virginia, but also the two filmmakers are actually living in Charlottesville. And just one example of many.
Got you.
I have a question for you real quick, Charles. When it comes to what you just said about people that do movies based on history, telling the truth, right? We know that there have been a lot of stories in the history books that don't exactly tell the whole picture. So when it comes to the classification of a film, if a story was viewed to be only one-sided and not in its entirety, would it be called fiction or nonfiction? Could a film that was only told in my point of view and the people that it related to me, after the truth comes out, can it be changed to say that this is not true? This is a non-fictional story.
Do you guys vet the films in that way, though?
We do. I mean, we do categorize films as either narrative or documentary. It's an interesting question because there are a lot of films, some actually quite purposely playing with that line, and others, to your point, I think everyone represents their own perspective. They choose facts to leave in, facts to put in, facts to leave out. My take on this is slightly different. I actually think it is never possible to tell a full story in a single tale. And so I think it is a job of the film festival as a whole, but not any individual art in the festival, to be holistic and to represent multiple points of view. I don't believe it is actually possible to achieve full balance in any single work of art, in any single story, because it's going to be biased. Whatever filter, whatever color you put on something, whatever context, whatever facts you leave out, whether intentionally or not, and it can truly be both, means that you're never going to be able to capture the totality of the full story. Our lives are complicated. Our lives are nuanced. Who gets to tell the story, whose voice is left out or not. I think the onus there is truly on the festival as a whole to make sure that the totality of the work is representative and inclusive of many different voice forms. I think each individual artist, each director, each screenwriter, their goal is to tell the most compelling story with their own viewpoint, and we actually should acknowledge that that's impossible to be totally encompassing.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of art, right? It's like we can listen to the same thing or see the same thing and have take something different from it. I feel like that's the beauty of it.
And lie.
Well, yeah, you know, always got that part. Like, y'all have a disclaimer?
No, I mean, I want to go into a couple people in the festival that are doing this very purposefully. So there's a film we're showing this year called Pavements, from a really well-regarded, highly awarded. It actually just premiered this film at the Venice Film Festival, another one of the most important in the world. It's called Pavements. And it's called Pavements because it centers on a 90s indie rock band called Pavement that also has local ties. They actually were a couple of the leads, Stephen Malcolmus and Bob Nastanovich, met at UVA. They both went to UVA. It's the same scene that Yellow Tango and the Silver Jews came out of in the 90s. And this band, they came to Alex Ross Perry, who's quite well known as a filmmaker, and they said they asked him to make a film about them. But they said there's a couple of key caveats. One, we're not going to talk to you for this film. We don't want to be interviewed. We don't want to, in any way, shape, or form, shape how people perceive us. We want you to shape that. And they went to him because he specifically actually sort of lives and thrives and skates on that line you were talking about, sort of between truth and artificiality. And I also think that truth and realism are two very different concepts. You can really accurately portray something, but again, by dearth of what you leave out or how you portray it, you might not be getting at real truth. You might just be getting at reality, or vice versa. And so he plays with these concepts. What he did for Pavements, he tries to really bottle the spirit of the band. They're incredibly mischievous, sardonical, sort of weird. That is part of their whole sort of brand and cachet. So what he did is he follows around, he looks at some archival footage, follows around real band members that do appear in the film, but he also casts pretty famous actors to play them. He also builds a whole, and truly did build this, a whole museum about their work, but puts in a lot of fake artifacts, and he mixes in real artifacts about their life. He stages a musical, and some of the mythology in the musical is purposely artificial, and some of it's purposely real. And on one hand, this is sort of just a fun game, but it's getting at and scratching at some of those very ideas you're pointing out. Something much more complicated is that the stories we tell ourselves become their own self-perpetuating mythology. And he wants to actually play with those ideas and look more at how we remember the band than any quote unquote truth about who they were. And I think you can apply those filters to nearly every story. And it's important that you do that when you're looking at eventually what is art.
So we are joined by Ilya Tobis, artistic director for the Virginia Film Festival, celebrating going into their 37th annual festival, October 30th through November 3rd. And as he said, you can find more at virginiafilmfestival.org with everything that's already live. The schedule is live. Tickets on sale to the public October 11th.
October 11th. That's right.
That we live for the public. So the one other thing I was thinking too, we had mentioned like family and maybe even like the local artists. I know in some of the shorts, there's a couple. It looks like some young people got a couple shorts in there. But when it comes to folks looking to attend this with their family, any highlights to give them on that?
Yes, I'm glad you brought it up. So for the past couple of years, and this year included, we have a family centerpiece. That's the easiest if you can make one and you're available at that time. It's a beautiful film. Guillermo del Toro got an advanced screening of this film. It's called Flow. And he said if he had to pick a future of animation, literally this is it. So the film is called Flow. It's actually Latvia's submission to the Oscars, one of 10 foreign submissions to the Oscars that we have in the festival. It centers on a cat that's going through this journey after a great flood. And what's incredible about this film, there's not a single word uttered in the whole film, which means that it works for everyone, for adults, for kids. If you're verbal, if you're not verbal, if English is your first or second language, does not matter, because you can watch this film and be overwhelmed. And really audiences have it just premiered at the most important film festival in Korea, in South Korea, in Busan, for 5,000 people, and they sat there and wrapped attention. It's an incredible story. So I would highly recommend Flow, which is playing on Sunday at 11 a.m.
And how are we considering this the future of animation?
So what it is, I think a lot of us, and I'm amongst this camp, to be honest, I love Pixar. I love a lot of Disney movies, but we've come to accept a certain form of animation as being kind of the animation that we're used to seeing. And this is a very independent, just the style, the visual style, the way it tells story. Again, the fact that it's not at all dependent on verbal cues and yet tells an incredibly emotional journey of this cat. I think there is something very futuristic and very exciting about this. This might be where cinema is going, where animation is going. And I'll say in general too, we're actually going heavier into animation this year than we have in several years past. There's another incredible film called Memoir of a Snail, which might be for slightly older kids and also very much for adults. This centers on a young woman who is a collector of snails. She's somewhat melancholic. She's a little bit awkward, and she kind of retreats in her own metaphorical shell as the film goes on, and then finds out she can't really live her life that way. And she finds out how, as someone who life has attempted to kind of make quiet and make small and put in a corner, how she can come out and truly be herself and take pride. And this is from Adam Elliott, we're going to be giving our first ever animation award. He's coming in for this. And his films have really swept every animation category. He is also an Academy Award winning filmmaker. He's won at Sundance. He's won at Annecy, which is the most important animation film festival in the world. So huge honor to have him in with Memoir of a Snail earlier in the festival on Thursday night.
I do have one last question. I'm thinking about a lot of the local issues here in the city and how any of those may be addressed or covered in the documentaries, right? And so I'm just curious, are there any films that are being shown relative to, let's say, mental health or homelessness, different things like that?
Sure. Mental health is covered in quite a lot of them, both fictionally and in ways that are international, but I think have local ties. For example, we're doing the U.S. premiere film called Demba out of Senegal, and looking at a place where there's really a stigma even around the term mental health, and how someone that's in bereavement for a past loved one and also dealing with active depression, how they can find resources in the whole country and the whole government that doesn't even respect the concept. And there's films like Prodigal Daughter that are a little bit closer to home, looking at undocumented immigrants dealing with mental health challenges, and again, how the resources may or may not be available from their local area to that. So certainly a lot of films hitting on that theme.
Okay. Thank you.
Ilya, thank you as always. It's always a rich discussion, very, very in depth. You do well. Tell Jody we missed him this year. but
I know he would have loved to be on here. I think he had something else to do at the same time.
It's very clear that you eat, sleep, and breathe this film festival.
Yeah, great job. Great job. Great job. Yeah. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, definitely visit virginiafilmfestival.org for more info on this year's 37th annual Virginia Film Festival coming up starting October 30th. So Ilya, continued success, and I look forward to seeing you in the theaters.
Yeah, me as well. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 1013 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Back like we never left. I to the ism, H to the ism. Talk show.
That's it.
Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
Razor.
In the booth, in the building, and y'all probably see in the background, got a young brother behind us. If you heard a lead banger, you heard of him, or you heard the sound, you heard the stylings. Mix Squad, new member to the Mix Squad. Go ahead and step up real quick. None other than DJ Kid Quest. Say what's up to people. Let people know when they can hear you on 101 Jams.
Man, appreciate the love. Appreciate the whole fam here at 101.3 Jams. I go by that 5-4 right at 305 Survivor. Your big homie DJ the Kid Quest. Make sure y'all tap in and turn up your radio dials from 6 to 8 p.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm gonna take you there and bring you there. That hip hop, that R&B, that new school, that old school, baby, and that Afro and reggae. Once again, I go by the name DJ the Kid Quest. Charlottesville, I love y'all.
All right. All right.
Yeah, I heard some little Haiti up in there. That man hates you there, ain't it? Dade County at its finest. That's what's up.
That's right. You know, so now we took care of those logistics. We're gonna dig even deeper into things that y'all need to know, because by popular demand, we have a gentleman, a brother with us right about now, that has been making waves since he's been in this Charlottesville community. He's out and about meeting and greeting people, whether it's through Black Professional Network or whether it's through other channels. He is a THRIVENT financial advisor, none other than my good brother, Edward Robinson. Mr. Robinson, thanks for joining us this afternoon. How you feeling, sir?
Man, doing all right. Doing all right. Glad to be here. Glad to hang with y'all and be invited to the party.
Welcome.
That's right. Hey, you know, ain't no party like an IMHO party. Come on, man.
Hey, Charles, you said he was financial advisor, right?
He is a financial
and
advisor.
his last name Robinson, right?
Robinson.
Hey, cuz, let me get a little. Let me borrow five.
Oh yeah, let your
let
cousin
me hold something.
Hey, listen, I'll let you hold it as long as I know it's enough to where if you don't pay it back, I ain't mad at you. So yeah.
Man, but you know, but for those that's wondering, and before anybody turns it off, you know, because they may have preconceived assumptions, I want the people to know, Edward, that the business that you are about, the reason that you're inclining to so many people is because you are really about the community. Your approach that I've seen, I want you to sort of, you know, introduce yourself as well, but I want to kind of just, you know, pitch you a softball of when I've heard you talk to people, when you and I have talked personally, you know, it was important for us to get you on the airwaves and get you connected to different people because you talk about group economics. Even for the faith-based community, which, you know, you're most rooted in, talking about the biblical practices of finances. You talk about family preparing themselves for future generations in a relatable way, not this pie in the sky kind of way where it feels unreachable. So, you know, so let me just hand it over to you so you can formally introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Edward Robinson. I serve as a financial advisor, as Charles said, in this community. I'm based out of Charlottesville, Virginia. I work for a company called THRIVENT, and it is a company that is about ensuring that everybody deserves a financial plan. And so if you don't have a financial plan, get one soon. Because if we're ever going to make it, if we're ever going to reach to the heights that we want to reach to, then economics has to be a part of the conversation. I feel like everybody kind of knows that now. And so when economics becomes a part of the conversation, then you got to talk to some professionals, right? Some folks that kind of know when you get to the point where you're making the money, now what are we going to do with it? Because if you don't tell your money where to go, you're going to wonder where it went. I promise you. They say money talk. To most of us, it just says bye-byes. See you later, maybe never. You know what I mean? And so we want to get to the point where we have good advice and a good plan on paper so that we be able to accomplish some of the things that we want to do.
If I can ask you a question real quick, you said that you believe that people by and large know that economics is important, right? What would you say caused that shift? Because it hasn't always been that way.
That's an excellent question. I really don't know. I feel like what some of the things that has happened is we've gotten some financial talking heads, some financial classes, some financial YouTube channels that have been speaking finance and economics in our language. For the most part, economics and finance has been spoken in a language that is unfamiliar to us. And when I say us, I mean specifically in the Black community. But what we have now is I'm gonna give a shout out to my sister because she's killing it on the gram and YouTube. Her name is Lynn Richardson. She's been on the Steve Harvey show. She speaks finance in our language. I'll give another shout out to platforms such as Earn Your Leisure. I'll give another shout out to, you know, the Wall Street Trapper. Like these voices are being spoken about things like stocks, the stock market, taxes, and so on and so forth. I even seen a couple of brothers on YouTube breaking down the difference between the different political parties and their different tax plans and how that affects our pockets. And so I think a part of it has been media and getting to the point where I think we also got frustrated by not owning enough. We got in spaces and we felt like we were professional. So we got to that point, but then we realized there was another barrier, which is ownership. And so enough of us weren't owning enough. And we were still feeling like, even though we were in professional spaces, that we still weren't getting our fair share. And so I think a mixture of that has led to the uptick in the conversation on economics.
Now, what's the foundation of the work that you do, though? When I say foundation, meaning if you're just meeting me, right? And you're trying to figure out where we're going to get started. Like, you may not even know where I am in my financial journey. Like, what is the basis that you work from?
Yeah, the basis that I work from is doing a full financial review. And so for some people that can be, well, for everybody, I'll tell you what's included in that review. Number one, we're going to look at your budget, right? We got to get an understanding of the money coming in versus the money coming out every month. We got to get a base understanding of that. We can't do anything if we don't understand how much income we're working with. It's kind of like blood flow in the body. That's how money works economically, at least speaking. So we got to get a review of the budget. Then we got to get a review on any debt that you might have. So we're going to look at that. Then I'm going to look at employee benefits. If you have a job and you work at a particular company, let's do an employee benefit review. And then another thing we're going to look at is an insurance review. That would be the fourth thing. And then the fifth thing is getting your retirement number, meaning how much money do you need by which date in order for you to retire with peace. So that's those 5 components of a full-fledged financial review, and we do that for free. And because I can't work with you if I don't know those 5 things. If I don't know those 5 things, then there's no work to be done. I can sell you something, and anybody can sell you something without knowing, right? Because they're just there to sell it to you. I'm interested in knowing what you got versus what you need. The type of work that we do is more tailor-made suits and dresses than buying generic or buying stock. And so what I mean by that is you're going to come in, I'm going to measure you, and we're going to get a good measurement for what you need rather than just selling you a generic product or getting you into a generic program or mutual fund or whatever we decide to do. But we're going to look and see what you need first, and those 5 components of that full financial review. And that will get us started.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, based off of the information that you just gave us, how the majority of our community does not have ownership, right? Is it possible that the reason that we are not coming out of what we are in is because nobody has tried to reverse engineer where we are? Like starting from, okay, you got cell phones at 16, so your credit's bad. You only went to college because everybody else was going. So now you got salary made loans. You got medical bills because you didn't have a doctor, so you had no insurance. Like all these things that put you at a 400 or 500 credit score. And building a platform that fits those people so that they can then start to come out. Because what I heard you say was, I bring you what I am. So first off, I have to have a job. I have to have a plan. I have to have certain things in place that a lot of our community does not have.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, I was just going to say, Razor, what if no one has those 4 components? I don't have a budget. I don't have benefits at work. I don't.
Matter of fact, I don't even have a car to get to you. You know what I'm saying? I'm at that place because I don't have a license. Like we have this thing in Charlottesville called elitists, and then we have just regular African-American people, right? And it's one of those things that get talked about behind closed doors. For the elitists, those are the ones that have the programs and sign up for this and get money from this organization, right? But for the everyday person who's struggling, not even from paycheck to paycheck, but from my paycheck to who I can borrow money to pay my paycheck back from, the language that we're talking about, ownership, is foreign. So has anybody taken the time to say, okay, I'm going to get in the mud. It's all screwed up. The only way y'all going to come out of this is what Charles has said that you said about collective economics. Y'all can't do it by yourself. You don't make enough. I know you don't like Sally Mae down the street because she XYZ to you back in the day. But using her $5 and your $5 can have y'all buying a home or sending your children to school. Like, why doesn't somebody build that kind of platform?
Yeah, and I'm glad, Razor, that you're being as blunt about this topic as you are, because there are a lot of people who those situations that you and I have described apply to, and they need answers.
Yeah, for sure. And so what I would say that is this: there's still some basic financial habits. I don't care where you're starting from, because we've all started from somewhere, right? I don't come from much at all. I come from Buffalo, New York, in a single parent home, like most of us. Like this story goes on and on. But we have to start with some financial habits. So I don't care if you got $2, $200, or 200,000. You have to have a budget. Because you have to control your spending. I don't care who you are or where you are. Fortune 500 companies have budgets. So dare I not think I need one individually and personally. It doesn't matter. So I have to account for what's coming in versus what's coming out either way. And so we got to start with basic financial habits. And so when I don't, you play the cards that you dealt, right? And so there's some basic rules to the game that apply to every single individual. And so if we're going to get ourselves out of the situations that we're in, some of those basics apply. Some of the same things I said. Let's look at the budget, right? If you don't have much, we're still going to look at it, because we need to know how much you need, right? And we need, whether that's we get it from assistance, whether we work for, however we decide, we now know the gap, right? You have to know your numbers. Everybody has to know their numbers. And if you don't know, then talk to me and we'll help figure it out. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, what are your debts? Who do you owe? You have to know that. Right. So let's get it on a sheet of paper. Let's just list it out. And so what I'm saying is, here's the thing that really happens. When you start looking at your numbers regularly, I promise you they tend to increase because you're consciously thinking about it all the time. Let me give you an example about money consciousness. Do you realize when we go to the store, most of the time we don't even know what we paid?
I know that's right.
Right, because we don't use cash anymore, right? Yeah. So we just swipe the card, boom, boom, boom. And so what that's done is that's given people a false understanding of what they actually have, because they don't know what they pay. They don't know what things cost. And so what I'm saying to you is, regardless of where we start from, there's still some basic things that we all have to do so far as being conscious about our situation. And that's all I'm trying to get people to.
What if you got a money problem? AA Ron, that used to be on the show with us, used to always say, the first thing you need to understand is that there's a money problem. So one of the ways that we chose to fix that money problem was illegal activity, drug selling, stealing, robbing, what all, right? Because we were trying to find that nest egg to be able to use to turn to legal money, so to speak. What do you recommend for a group of people who can't get jobs that literally take care of them? Here in Charlottesville, you have so many people coming from the outside counties to work here in Charlottesville because they can't afford here, right? So if money is my issue, what are we really talking about? I don't even have the first step. Zero.
Yeah, we're starting at two different presuppositions. You're thinking money is the issue, and I'm thinking the mentality is the issue. Right? So it's not meaning what the ways that you're thinking. I was sitting down with somebody, and this was just last week, sitting down with one of my clients, and I said, and they were ironing everything out. And I told them, I said, you have to understand that your mind is a 3D printer for your life. So your lack of money in this particular situation was a reflection of how you're thinking. So, right. So now when I say, for example, if you say there's no jobs, cool, we got it. There's a bunch of things we can do when there's no jobs. There's things we can sell. We can do retail arbitrage, which is you buying something over here and selling it over here, right?
I do it all the time.
Yeah, all the time, right? So what I'm saying is, let's work on the mental habits. Let's work on where you at in terms of your understanding, and that can get us to a place. Because if you tell them, you can't tell me there's no opportunity. What you might have a struggle with is seeing the opportunity that's there. Right. So retail arbitrage is an opportunity. You can buy stuff out of TJ Maxx and Marshalls and sell it on Amazon sometimes for 2 and 3 times the price. Right. But what's the issue that we're having is really what I want to get to. So what I'm learning is, and what I've learned over time is that economics, they think it's a study of money. It's really a study of psychology. It's a study of human behavior with money.
I agree.
That's really what it is. And so what I'm saying is, what are some of those habits that we have that are not benefiting us financially, and then how do I help with that part? I'm always honing in on that, because oftentimes what I'll find is sometimes it's just you have a habit of overspending. So either it's us or somebody in our family that's always had that habit. I know it's some folks in my family. I ain't gonna air them out. I love them to death, right? But there was a habit of overspending to compensate for other areas of life. We have to deal with that as much as we got to deal with the money problem, because they're very much related.
What
The
about people
mentality
that
and
pay
the money.
services? This is my last question, Charles.
Yeah,
what
go
about
ahead.
people that are on services, right?
Yeah.
The mindset, I'm in agreement with what you said about the mindset. So there are people who get services from the government, and
Yes.
if they go past a certain point, they'll lose their housing, right? If they lose so the mental stigma is developed by the government. I understand what you're talking about, buying and selling, but the first thing that I understand, in order for me to buy, I have to have some type of resources, right? So even when we talk about marshals or whatever, I have to have money to be able to do this thing. Now, when it comes to the people that get the services, they can only operate under a certain amount of money, or they start operating illegally. Because if I'm generating money, then that means I have to turn that in. So the system that is set, because poverty is lucrative. If I can make you spend more because you got bad credit, or if I can make you eat food out of these little stores that got a refrigerator in the back of it that's high in sodium, potassium, and everything else, and then I can get you on medication through the government, these, for lack of a better term, Obama plan or anything else, right?
Yeah, for
Now
sure.
I am, you understand where I'm going with this?
Absolutely.
Now I am controlling your mental state. So Max always said, we don't actually have as many housing problems and as many financial problems as we have mental problems. Because if I can accentuate your lack of your mental stability, I essentially can control everything else around you, and I can undermine you the whole time. So
Absolutely.
I applaud everything that you're doing. I just want to know, is there anybody that's going to tackle these what's the word Charles uses? These systematic structures that's in place that keep us from getting even starting from what you're talking about?
I'll tell you like this. So I remember as a kid going to the store with the food stamps, and I'm talking about before EBT card. I'm talking about actual stamps, right? So the question that I'm going to paper stamps, them brown Jones, when you had the bus of stamp. I don't know if y'all remember bus and stamps. Yeah. I don't know if you remember bus and stamps. You buy something for 25 cents, get 75 cents back, just to get 75% in cash. Well, it's not cash, it's coins, but you get my point. Here's my point with saying that. The question is going to be this: where do you want to end up? That's where I'm going to start with people, because I'm gonna be honest with you. It's hard for us to work when there's no ambition to get yourself out of the situation you're currently in. It's hard for me to push somebody that's refusing to move. You see what I'm saying? So when I'm asking the question, how I start, and Charles, I don't know if you remember this, when we were teaching the class, I started with, what is the dream? Because the dream is going to help us get over the obstacle when it's hard to get through. My point with saying that is, where do we want to end up? Do you want to stay in that situation where this is the track you're on, right? What path are you currently on? If you're on a path where you got government assistance and that's the challenge, then where does that path lead you at the end of the day? And are you comfortable with that destination? Now, if you're telling me you're not comfortable with that destination, then I'm going to tell you inherently, every destination there's some risk involved in taking a different route. So the point at which we take the risk, it'll be based on you. But the question is, where are we going with this?
Right. And I agree.
Where are we going to end up?
Because I hear a lot of challenges and barriers and hurdles. I hear Razor describing that, but at the end of the day, control what you can control.
That's all we're trying to do.
You can't live a life. Yeah, you can't.
That's all
live
we're trying to do.
Well.
I agree.
Yeah,
right.
and also speaking of the controlling of what you can control, like, Edward, like, you're a good brother, good heart. So when people come to you on paper, you're just the financial advisor. Now, I'm sure you run into clients or potential clients to where you're like, oh, I'm gonna have to refer you to this service and that service as well to help us out here. You know what I mean? Like, so we can kind of bridge these gaps, because a lot of what I'm hearing being said so far with the mentality is, I think it comes out of fear. It comes out of, well, I'm embarrassed to talk about my situation one, right? And or or it's like I think that it's so unattainable and so unreachable. So my question to you, Edward, then would be like how do you handle that situation, or like what, and you probably already touched on it, but if there's anything else that you want to add to it of to the person that's scared to even open up their checkbook to you. Like, how do you engage them to be like, trust me on this? This is a journey that you need to take.
Yeah, first of all, I tell people, you talk to me like you talk to your lawyer. There's that high level of confidentiality, first of all. So I'm not out here airing your business in the streets. That's number one. Number two, the question is this: going with what you currently been doing, where has that gotten you? Okay? Because if we think we're going to get a different result from doing the same thing we've been doing, then we know what that's called. Everybody knows the definition of that. I'm not even going to, right? So what now has to change based on this new dream? And I'm going to be honest, it's hard for me to work when there's no dream. It's hard for me to work when there's no dream.
Respect.
You see what I'm saying? So there has to be some kind of dream that I'm helping you get towards. Otherwise, I'm dragging you. Right. So when I say, hey, send me that tax return. Oh man, it's been a month. I ain't got the chance to get it to you yet. But come on, Doc, we're trying to get to a dream now. So then when I ask for that tax return or whatever documents I'm looking for to get from you, right, so we can review it, then you respond differently when you got a dream in your head and in your mind and in your soul. And sometimes that dream is fueled by your kids for some folks. They ain't even dreaming for themselves. Sometimes it's their spouse. Sometimes for some of us like me, man, we got to retire our parents.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes the dream stems from your responsibility to other people, whether that's the church, the community, your family, whatever the case might be. Get it from somewhere. That dream got to stem from somewhere. Go ahead.
What if the goals of the two people in the house are different? Like good point. You have now, I'm not talking about bad. You can have perfect example. Just my wife is going to make sure that our children have the best outcome. Hands down. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, she never not thinks about the children not getting to the highest level that they can be. You know what I'm saying? She had a saying that she wanted them to love themselves and fight enough to give themselves the future they deserve. And she does everything. Me, I come from a family where it was all about provision, right?
Yeah.
So you might talk crazy, you might, you know what I'm saying? He laughing. You know, it's old school. Like I had one of them. Right? So you might have a knockdown drag out, but I'm gonna go buy groceries and food.
I'm gonna cuss you out, but I'm gonna put this food on this table.
Don't in your head or something like that. But at the same time, man, how do you take two people that have great goals, but they're coming up two different sides of the road?
Yeah, you find the middle ground. You find the middle ground, and you find the reward that and get a little bit of reward that satisfies both of you. Let me give you
the middle ground when one is coming across the water and one is on the road. And where is the middle? There is no middle ground to that. There's a meeting point, but that's not a middle ground. Where one gets strong, the other one gets weak. So I'm talking about that reality of, you know, the middle ground sounds good, and I respect what you're saying, but there are times where, like, there's a hard middle ground for a bird and a fish. There is no middle ground where they meet at. One is strong and one is weak. So how do you take families that have goals, that have aspirations, but they have the mindset and the power in two different entities? To be
there's something that fish wants and something that bird wants that's the same. What is it?
To live.
Okay, so whatever it is, when I'm talking about that, discover what it is that they both want. Right?
Okay.
See what I'm saying? What is it that they both want? That's where you start. That's where the conversation starts. Let me give you an example. So going back, this had to be about 2016, 2017 time frame. And I started on this debt freedom journey that I wanted to be on, and to get me and my family out of debt. So we did that. Took us some while. We had 6 figures of debt to crawl out of: student loan debt, medical bills, My wife really wasn't with the program, Doc. I'm gonna just be honest. She really wasn't. Now, my wife was a good woman, great woman, excellent woman, but she just was like, this whole idea of us not going on vacation for a number of years because we trying to dig out of debt. I'm not feeling that. We had to come to right. We had to come to a place, and what I found was there was a reward that I could tack on at the end of it. That if we made sure we did this, and for us it was Disney. She wanted to go to Disney at the end of it all. right? So I'm like, all right, girl, as soon as we get about this situation, that's straight where we're going, and that's what we did. 2022, we did our big Disney trip, so on and so forth. My point with saying that is we had to come to a place where there was something that we both wanted. The motivation behind it was, for my wife, it was all about the kids, of course. So then, so I got to a point. I said, "Listen, if we dig out of debt, this is what it does. This is what it does for our children. Boom, 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 boom. Frees us up to open up an investment account. Frees us up to make sure they got their 529 plan. Frees us up to all of these particular things, right? And so I'm speaking in her language, right? So that bird better talk fish."
That's right. That you just made too. And the point that you made too is like essentially, like we talking about a relationship, right? And just like you need to have a relationship with your like finances, right? It's like the people, the family, the marriage has to have the level of relationship too, because you know, like we're talking about individuals, like, but what makes relationships work is that those individuals find that common ground. Sometimes you got to do things like that as an individual you wouldn't do on your own. But if we're going to be together, you know, if we're going to be together, that means we got to find what our common areas in, and that's your common areas is what keeps you together, right? That's what relationship is.
I also want to bring it back around to the group economics in terms of outside of the household. My dad was living. I would have loved to have done a lot more to help support him and my mother, but just wasn't in a position to do so. You know, so we helped to a degree, but it wasn't even to the level that that they needed. And so can you speak a little bit more about how that sort of group economics can work to the advantage of those involved?
Yeah, really what you're talking about is the understanding of what America describes as the extended family and what ancient cultures would have just called a household. A household historically has always included both children, parents, and grandparents. Because historically, before we got to the 1930s and there was a such thing as Social Security, it was the responsibility of the sons, the grandsons primarily, and the children to take care of the parents and the grandparents. And so when the reason why I bring that up in the conversation about group economics is because group economics starts in the home. The cultures that practice group economics still have traditional values in terms of how the homes are run. And when I say traditional, in this case, what we're talking about is taking care of parents. Now, what happens is in most cases, when I'm talking to clients that are in their 40s and 50s, there's this weird switch, and it can happen sooner, but there's this weird switch in transaction that happens where your parents almost become your children.
Yeah.
And so now you find yourself in a situation where you're taking care of children, your children, for some people, at the same time having to bear the responsibility of your parents. And so now you're double tapped from the generation before you and the generation after you.
That's true.
And right. And so what's happening is if our parents didn't take care of themselves because they were too busy trying to take care of us, then there's a certain responsibility that we have to take care of them beyond just kind of, you know, hoping that somebody else would do the job. And so that's where group economics starts for me, is it starts in the household.
Why do we because that the Latino community for doing that?
Say that one more time.
I can remember a time, if we're honest, people made fun of the Latino community because they had so many people in one house. And a lot of the people who own houses that were renting them, Caucasian people, didn't want Latino people having a more than one family, or the communities didn't want that next to them, right? Even though that is what gave you like security, that gave you childcare, that gave you all these other things. And it seems like our community has a problem with more than one person being in the house. Like if grandma in the house and grandma and the wife might not get along because of, I used to hear old men talk about two women can't survive in the house together, or, you know, a daughter and a mother, because now the daughter has grown up and has an important role in the house, and the mother isn't a grandmother, so to speak, yet mentally, and she's not ready to let go of the reins. So then the house is in chaos. So then our Black community is once again scattered.
That's because we're talking about, you know, like we have toxic traits, and you know, like that we get too prideful, you know, like, well, I'm not sharing the house because people are gonna think I don't have enough money to live on my own, instead of thinking of that bigger picture. You know,
but two things. Number one, we've adopted Western culture,
Right.
But remember, we are tribal people. We're very tribal. So if you sit down with native Nigerians, for example, and I bring up Nigerian because I'm more Nigerian than I am anything else in terms of my African descent. So I'm more Nigerian than anything. So when I talk to Nigerians, they still have a tribal understanding of the way the world works and tribal traditions of family. And so it impresses me, right? It impresses me. I love it because I realized we lost it somewhere along the way. We've lost our tribalness. And so that's one thing. The second thing I'll say is on that subject is we're actually returning back to it. I don't know if you follow in the trend, but there's a lot of people moving back in with mom and dad. Yeah. And because housing is so expensive, and because inflation is so high, you're starting to see more people move in and pack in a little bit more. Because either that or you're getting roommates, right? Because the mortgages are too crazy. If you did not buy a house before 2021, then God bless, because it's rough out here in these streets. And so what we're starting to see is more groups coming together. But we lost it and we adopted Western culture. That's what happened.
I'm a Christian, but do you think Christianity played part in that? Because if the father is supposed to take care of the household, it doesn't speak much about multitudes of people being under the roof. So do you?
It does. We just missed it. So, for example, if you hop into 1 Timothy chapter 5, and Paul is going through this conversation on when do you take care of a widow, an older woman in the church? Like, when does the church supposed to be paying for her to live? And one of the qualifications was that she does not have children or grandchildren. And in that context is when it says that those who don't take care of those of their own household are worse than an unbeliever. That the context is that the church is not responsible for older women who have children and grandchildren, because it's their responsibility to take care of her. Now, that happened in the first century before Social Security. So you understand it. The other thing that we missed is missed the economic implication of the fifth commandment. The fifth commandment is to honor your father and your mother. Well, what does that mean in tangible, accessible, practical terms? That means you are responsible to take care of them until they die. That's the economic implication of the fifth commandment. We say honor, like, okay, I'm not gonna cuss around you. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna say nothing bad around you, and I'm gonna say good things about you. No. That had a financial responsibility attached to that fifth commandment. We just missed it.
So we are talking to THRIVENT financial advisor Edward Robson. This is great stuff, because I don't even think I even told them that you were a minister, but they heard that octave raise. He started
hooping a little bit.
Everyone's ready.
Damn.
See, and but great info. Edward.
Good stuff.
Yeah, like even more that we could ask. But since we're on that, and without you feel like that you got to give away too much free game, like when it comes to your,
I'll give away all the free game, so don't worry about that. Yeah.
But like when it comes to your like principles in general, like you, I don't know if you want to break down that one particular percentage principle, but my point with that, though, since we're in this lane, is the importance of giving, the importance of being charitable. And while some people will be like, like grandma gave her last dollar to the church, and I ain't a proponent of that, literally, but my point that I'm making, though, is the importance of being charitable and the importance of designating some of our money and how that actually is fruitful.
Little faith.
Yeah. So there's a principle out of Proverbs, and I'm gonna paraphrase it. It basically says this: the stingy person ends up with less money, and the person that gives more money away somehow has more money. I'm gonna say that one more time. The stingy person got a hole in their pocket, while the person who was generous somehow gets more money. And you would think, now I look at things mathematically. 2 + 2 is 4. So if I had 2 and I gave away 2, how the heck do I still end up with 4? I don't know. God just blesses it that way.
That's right.
He just blesses it that way.
Speaking of
Speaking,
and I hate to cut you off, but like I'm so excited about what you're talking about. Like, Charles, thank you for bringing them on here. This is beneficial to me.
Oh, you tried to stump him, but I knew it wasn't gonna work.
How do you? I ain't finished with him yet. How do you raise your children to be beneficial in the way that you're talking and still allow them to grow? Because I get enjoyment in seeing them say, I accomplished, I did, I came about, right? But what you're talking about financially is grouping theirs with ours, right? So when do they get a chance to experience their labor for their own fruitfulness?
Yeah, I am in the man, how much time we got? Because yeah, so I have 5 kids. Let me say that.
Oh, you ain't scared.
And
okay.
No. I ain't scared, Doc. This is my subject right here. Because what we're talking about is a mixture between faith, family, and finances. And so when you blend those things together, this is the best I can come up with. I am teaching my children group economics, and my oldest is only 8 years old. And how am I teaching them group economics? One of the things that I tell my children is whatever you do in the world, make sure it associates with your brother and your sister. Meaning, if you're going to be a lawyer, be their lawyer. If you're going to be an accountant, be their accountant. Whatever you're doing in the world, whatever you decide, if you're going to be a doctor, make sure you see about them. Meaning what you're doing has to somehow interact with the group's dream. Now, this group is a family group. It's me, right? So I tell them, and I teach my sons, particularly, and my daughter's the youngest, so I haven't gotten to her yet. She's only 7 months. She got a high fever today, so pray for her. But anyway, I teach my kids, listen, your brother or your sister has a strength you don't have. I promise you they do. So don't think you have to be, need to be, or are everything. But I also watch my children, and I watch them to see what their strengths are. So by the time they get to that point where they want to make a decision about a career, I got some information to tell them because I got a book out on them that I've been writing for 18 years. Not actually, but in my mind.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? So I got a book out on you. I know you. I've been watching you more than you've watched yourself. And based on that, here's what I think you can do. Now, whatever you decide to do in the world, make sure it benefits your family. So don't think like an individual. I'm just going to go off and do this based on my passion. Cool. What is your passion? What good does your passion produce in your family and ultimately in the world?
But you know what I hear, Pastor? That's great talk, and I believe in it. I subscribe to it. I subscribe to it. It is definitely the motto to live by. But I know that we have individuals listening who are hearing that you reference the family unit. And unit in the way that it was intended to be since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And something which it may also be something that they don't have in their family.
Correct.
That's good.
So they aren't able, they have no point of reference, right? They can't connect the dots in order to orchestrate things or construct things in the way that you are referencing them to be able to have the financial liberty that ultimately we all want to have.
So you know what ends up happening sometimes? I have sometimes people that reach out to me. And you know what it ends up being single moms. And they'll reach out because they say, hey, I just need you to go talk to my son about this, that, or the third. And so the reason why I say the things that I say is because we still need to put the positive out there, even if the situations don't necessarily fit that circumstance. But here's what we can do. We can still guide our children. One of the principles that you extract from that situation is teach your children to take responsibility for each other. But we all do that. We know that part. But also don't just leave them out there. If you can instruct them and you can help them figure it out, then help them figure it out. You've been watching them. Don't assume that they know more than you about themselves. Especially my mama's out there. Mama knows, baby. Mama knows. You know what I mean? And so have the confidence to give them some instruction and teach them to ensure that their passion does some good for somebody else besides themselves. That's the principle.
Are the men ineffective in your process? Because everything that you just now said had little to do with the male of the house or even of the community. If he's not in a, like Max said, a traditional setting of a house, how can the men of our community be influential, and they may be outside the house or they may have less money than their female counterpart, inside the house? How can he be of a reference point? Because if you're biblical, you understand hierarchy. And if you have people that have bought into the Western way of whoever has the money has the power. But if we're talking biblical, I don't lose my position in my house just because my finances aren't the greatest.
Correct.
We'll talk to that. So where are the men at in this process?
That's some of my favorite work to do is with the guys who are taking responsibility for their families and their communities. The challenge there is most of us don't think we need no help.
True.
Right. So there's a correlation between the man that won't go to the doctor and the man that won't sign up for a financial review.
Say so. Say so.
Okay. And I'm saying that because I just got to the point where I'm doing regular blood work.
Same here, man.
Same here, man.
Right?
Robinson, ain't you? Lord,
Listen. So my point with saying that is that the guy who says I don't need no blood work is the same guy who says I don't need no financial advisor to give me no nothing, right? And so that's the challenge is a lot of times what happens is the guys will show up once their wife sign up.
Yeah.
Right. That's what happens. That's why also, by the way, just to let y'all know, married men tend to live longer. It's only because their wife make them go to the doctor. That's the only that's the only reason. Right. So my point with saying that is, listen, we got to be humble enough to say, hey, bro, I'm not everything I need to be.
That's right. Humble.
And because I'm not everything I need to be, I need at least some brothers. Now, let me give you a stat. You are the financial average of your 5 closest friends.
Wow.
So my point with saying that is, whatever you're not, get around some people who are, because I promise you, listening to YouTube all day ain't changing nothing. You are informed, and you got a big bloated head and skinny legs. Right? So you got the information. You got the information. But what have you done with the information? You done watched it all. You done read it all. Some people swear they know more than me on money. If they do, fine. It don't bother me because I'm not here to know more. I'm here to do better.
Say so.
Right? And so my brothers, man, get some help. Whatever you know, and you know what you're not. Whatever we are, we know what we're not. I got to get a coach. I got to get a fitness coach. I'm looking for one right now. Right? Because I'm not all things when it comes to fitness. Now, finance, cool. I got that. But when it comes to fitness, I need some help, Doc. I need some brothers. You see what I'm saying? So whatever you're lacking, find you somebody. Call somebody. There's life coaches, fitness coaches, financial coaches. There's fatherhood coaches. There's coaches on all fronts now. But get what you get. And if you got to pay them, then pay them. But if not, then find you some brothers that are strong in that area, that are close to you, and go ahead and get with the program.
Love it. Edward Robinson, Thrivent Financial Advisor. But Edward, since we're running short on time, let the people know of an event that we got coming up.
Absolutely. Yeah. So me and Charles are working together with the Black Professional Network to do a financial seminar that will be on Monday, this coming Monday. That's October 14th at 6 p.m. We're looking forward to that, man. We're looking to hang. We're going to cover this week. So we're building our financial house. Last time we talked, which was in September, we talked about building the foundation. This time we're talking about building the first floor. And on that first floor, we got to talk about retirement and investments. And so if you have a 403B or 401k at work, or if you're just looking to get started on how to put a little money away, I don't care if it's $50 a month, wherever you want to get started, then let's go ahead and start that conversation, as well as putting a few dollars away for our kids.
All right,
and where is the workshop?
Yeah. Let me pull up that real quick.
Yeah, that is going to be at the Jefferson School.
Okay.
October 14th at 6 p.m. So we'll be right there in Pearl Island Cafe. If you've been over there, we're gonna hang over there 6 p.m.
Free food. Not just free game. Okay. Free blood and game. Look. I got Kid Quest attention.
Y'all show them how to do
that groove, man. You pay free food.
Come on and eat twice. Yeah.
Monday, October 14th, with none other than the voice you just heard, Edward Robinson. 6 o'clock, like you said, Jefferson School, free grub and game. And this is part 2. So the idea behind this too is a 4-part series called Financially Lit. So each time getting something different. And the timing was purposeful, Max and Razor, too, because it's the last 4 months of the year.
Okay.
So leading into the holiday season to hopefully get that mentality right that we're talking about, so we ain't broke after December 25th. And
I know, right?
That, you know.
Hey, Edward, I don't know you, man, but I'm impressed by you. Nothing but respect for you.
Most definitely, man. It's been a good conversation. I'm hoping that we can come on. We got a lot to dive into, so I'd love to be back.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Sound
Thank you.
good.
All right. Continue blessings to you, sir.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. We only got like a minute left, Max. You want to take us home?
There's really not much more to say, you know. It's been a great show, and of course, we always want to give a shout out and a thank you to our listening audience, because we couldn't do what we do without someone on the other end of the microphone taking in all of this information and hopefully creating a better quality of life for themselves and those that they care about. And so we appreciate you. And I just tell everyone to take care of themselves and take care of each other.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jam.